dig into Generation 2, Copies of Copies, which roughly lasts from 2007 to 2010. By 2007, something fascinating was happening in the emo ecosystem. The bands emerging weren't studying My Chemical Romance directly anymore. They were actually studying the bands that had already studied My Chemical Romance. Now we're entering the photocopying phase, where each generation became a little blurrier, a little less precise than the one before. This second wave coincided with some major shifts in the music industry. Social media was exploding, giving bands a new way to build audiences, but also creating pressure for constant content. Record labels were signing almost anyone with eyeliner and a decent scream, hoping to replicate that lightning in a bottle success twice, or three times, or four times, as many times as they could. Most importantly, the kids discovering these bands often had no idea they were experiencing a filtered version of something more complex and authentic. Let's start things off with Escape the Fate, what I call the soap opera distraction. Escape the Fate formed in Las Vegas in 2004, initially as a straightforward post hardcore band. When original vocalist Ronnie Radke joined in 2005, they seemed to pivot hard towards the MCR template, just as Three Cheers was dominating MTV. The band's 2006 EP, There's No Sympathy for the Dead, showed they recognized what was required: theatrical darkness, emotional intensity, visual drama. What they got right was the aesthetic translation. They maintained that eyeliner and angst look, but made it more commercially palatable, less artistically challenging. Where Gerard Way's presentation felt like performance art rooted in comic book culture, Escape the Fates' look felt more like what a focus group would design if asked to create the perfect emo band. Musically, they captured MCR's melodic hardcore foundation, but stripped away the progressive elements that made songs like Thank You for the Venom so compelling. Their 2008 major label debut, Dying Is Your Latest Fashion, showed real potential. Songs like Situations and Not Good Enough for Truth in Cliche had genuine hooks and emotional weight. They grasped how to build tension and release it, but their arrangements were more predictable, more radio formatted than MCR's adventurous song structures. Then came the twist that would define their entire trajectory. In 2008, just as the band was gaining real momentum, Ronnie Radke was arrested for his involvement in a fatal shooting. Suddenly, the band's real life drama became more compelling than their actual music. The media coverage was relentless. Alternative press, Kerrang, every music blog covered the story extensively. When Craig Mabbitt from Bless the Fall replaced Radke in Escape the Fate, it created this ongoing narrative tension that overshadowed their artistic output. Fans picked sides. Debates raged on MySpace and early Facebook, and the band's 2010 self-titled album became almost secondary to the human drama surrounding it. This is where Generation 2 fundamentally differed from the original source. MCR's darkness came from genuine artistic vision and personal struggle, translated into universal themes. Escape the Fate's darkness became about lineup changes, legal troubles, and industry politics. Yes, the emotion was real, but it was pointed inward at band dynamics rather than outward at larger human experiences. Despite the constant upheaval, Escape the Fate managed to maintain a dedicated fanbase through multiple lineup changes and continued releasing albums well into the 2010s. They became proof that sometimes controversy can sustain a band longer than artistic merit. Their later work felt increasingly disconnected from both MCR's influence and their own early potential, but the drama kept them relevant in a way that pure music couldn't. Up next, we have Black Veil Brides, the costume party approach. If Escape the Fate showed how real life drama could overshadow artistry, Black Veil Brides demonstrated how visual spectacle could completely replace emotional authenticity. Formed in Cincinnati in 2006 by Andy Biersack, who later changed his surname to Black, they represented the most literal interpretation of MCR's theatrical approach. Where Gerard Way's Gothic elements felt rooted in literature and genuine personal darkness, Black Veil Brides looked like they'd studied Kiss more than MCR. The face paint was more elaborate, the leather was shinier, the poses more dramatically staged. It was theatrics taken to cartoonish extremes, costume without context. Their 2010 major label debut, We Stitch These Wounds, showed they completely misunderstood what made MCR's music so powerful. They stripped away all the complexity in favor of anthem-ready choruses and basic metal riffing. Songs like Perfect Weapon and Knives and Pens were designed for crowd participation, but they lacked the emotional complexity that made you actually want to sing along. Lyrically, they turned My Chem's genuine struggle with depression and alienation into motivational slogans. Believe in yourself messaging disguised as rebellion. Their 2011 concept album, Set the World on Fire, attempted to create mythology around being outcasts, but without actually challenging anything or taking real artistic risks. They captured defiance and bravado while completely missing introspection and vulnerability that made MCR's confidence feel earned. What's crucial to understand is that Black Veil Brides succeeded wildly within their target demographic. Their 2012 album, Wretched and Divined, debuted at number 20 on the Billboard 200. They headlined major tours, appeared on late night television, and built a genuinely devoted fan base. Their success came from amplifying My Chemical Romance's most surface level elements, while abandoning everything that gave those elements meaning and depth. BVB's social media presence perfectly encapsulated this approach, where My Chem used their platform to discuss literature, comic books, and genuine social issues. Black Veil Brides focused on image maintenance and brand building. They recognized that in the social media age, aesthetic consistency could substitute for artistic authenticity. By mid-2010s, Black Veil Brides had successfully transitioned into a touring nostalgia act, playing the same anthems to the same devoted fans year after year. They'd found their lane and they stayed in it, never evolving beyond their initial interpretation of what made theatrical rock successful. In many ways, they became the ultimate example of how surface-level copying could still generate a sustainable career. Let's talk Generation 2's legacy. Generation 2 represented a crucial transition in the photocopying process. These bands were no longer studying My Chemical Romance directly. No, they were studying Generation 1's interpretation of My Chemical Romance and then adding their own regional and personal flourishes. The result was music that maintained some connection to the original, but was increasingly filtered through multiple layers of interpretation. What distinguished this generation was their relationship to drama and spectacle. Where MCR had used theatrical elements to serve emotional storytelling, Generation 2 bands often reversed the equation. The spectacle became the point, with emotional content serving the visual presentation rather than the other way around. Most significantly, this generation proved that commercial success was possible even with increasingly diluted versions of the original formula. Record labels took note, recognizing that you didn't need artistic authenticity to build a sustainable career. No, you just needed to hit the familiar aesthetic and emotional markers that audiences had learned to associate with this type of music. This success blew open the door for Generation 3, where connection to the original would become even more tenuous, and the focus would shift almost entirely to commercial viability over artistic integrity.